Hey guys, what's up? It's Ray. Welcome to this new video. This is part 2 of my ultimate 120 Dungeoneering guide, and part 2 is about tools and binds. I'm going to explain a little bit to you about what binds are and how you can use your tools to your advantage. So I hope you guys enjoy. If you do, let me know in the comments below at the end of the video. And please give this video a like or any rating if you enjoyed it. Now, when you first start out a dungeon, as you see me right here, I'm in a new dungeon. There's an interface which is a normal world of Galenor as well, which is at the equipment screen. There will be a small option named toolbelt, and you'll see everything that is in your toolbelt at the moment. Now, you'll have the basic tools in there: all the no-fight hatchet, no-fight pickaxe, a knife, a hammer, a chisel, a fly fishing rod, a needle, and a tinderbox. Now, as you probably already have noticed, or if you haven't, there are no feathers in there, so make sure to buy them when you start a dungeon, especially a large dungeon. You don't want to go back to base because you don't have feathers and you have some sort of room which requires those. So make sure you have that. The rest is all there. A vial, I'm pretty sure that's also not there, so if you need any potions, make sure to buy a vial as well. You can't be bought from the smuggler, which I said in part 1. Now we go back to the toolbelt real quick. There is another option here, which is the key slot. Now, as you can see in the top left corner, there's also some same key slot there. Now it says current keys none because I just started out a dungeon. I haven't picked up any keys. As you can see right here, there's also my tool belt of keys is now empty. But in the smuggler room there is a gold triangle key. Now if I pick this one up, first of all you'll see it appear in the top left corner of my screen. You'll see gold triangle key. Now if I ever in this dungeon need the gold triangle key, I can just click on the door and it will unlock. Now everyone in the party, this is a solo dungeon, see I'm the only one in there. This is a solo dungeon, so there's no other people in the party, but if there were, everyone in the party would see this right now and everyone would be able to use it. Now with this update in March, yeah, it updated this. Normally you just had to switch keys in the inventories, but now you don't have to do that anymore. You can just use them whenever you want to. As you can also see, if you want to check your keys, it's also right here, but it is way easier to use here, since you don't have to open any screens. You can open this if you are in a combat, so yeah. And for the people that have noticed already, in my tool belt there weren't any no-fight hatchets, any no-fight pickaxes. That's because I upgraded them. Now with the same update which released the tool belt, it also gave you the option to upgrade any pickaxes or hatchets that you find in any dungeons or make yourself. Now, of course, the primal pickaxes and primal hatchet cannot be made yourself, and you get them as a drop from the bulwark beast. The bulwark beast is a boss that can only be encountered on level 23 Dungeoneering. So if you want to get all the best pickaxes, you need to kill that one. Now the best chance of getting a primal pickaxe and a primal hatchet, it drops them both by the way, is in a 5-man team. You don't need to do largest, but as long as you have a 5-man team, there's the best chance of getting a primal pickaxe and a primal hatchet. Of course, it also drops the other pickaxes and hatchets. So if you don't have the smithing level to make them yourself, or just don't have the mining and hatchet, the mining and woodcutting level to use those pickaxes and hatchets yet, you can also get them as a drop from there. But it's just not certain which one you'll get. You can get anywhere from no-fight all the way to primal. So let's say your mining and smithing level, or mining and smithing, your mining and woodcutting level are both 70, and you can only use Catagon. There is no 100% chance that you will get them as a drop. So if you want to have a 100% chance you'll get the one you can use, you have to smith them yourself. Now you can also already put the primal pickaxe and primal hatchet in your tool belt where you don't have the level yet to use them. It will just stay there, and it will use any hatchet or pickaxe you can. Let's say you have both a Catagon and a primal pickaxe in there, but you only have 70 mining. You're only able to use the Catagon pickaxe. It will just leave the primal pickaxe there, and it will just automatically use the Catagon pickaxe. So you don't have to worry about that, and if you already want to get them, that's completely fine. Of course, when you start out a dungeon, you start with no items whatsoever, since you can't take anything in there, and all the items from the last floor will all disappear. But we do have one benefit, and that is our binds. Now a bind is an item that will be worn at the start of the dungeon, or will start in your inventory, depends on what item it is. And at different levels you can bind different things. Now at level 1 you have 1 bind, at level 50 you have 2 binds, at level 100 you have 3 binds, and at level 120 you have 4 binds. These gaps are quite big, but yeah, that's a whole other issue, I guess. Now, me and Krulin is 200 mil dungeon experience, so he has the most experience with this. And me, I'm 105 Dungeoneering. have come up with like the best items to bind at certain levels, and this is what we came up with. You might have a different idea about this, but this is just to show you what we think. Now for your first bind, as I said in my first part, it is really important that you bind a weapon. Now a two-hander is the best weapon for this. A two-hander always goes over the maul, since it's just way better, different attack styles and everything. Now it also of course differs what attack level you are, since that way you can bind different material weapons. Now I'm 90 attack, I can bind Promethean, but some guys already 99 and they can bind the two-hander or the primal two-hander. But some are also just lower levels and they bind Catagon or maybe Gorgonite or something like that. But you have to sort that out for yourself, as long as it is a weapon and preferably a two-hander. Now for your second bind, I rather take the Shadow Silk Hood over the Plate Body. Now if you don't know what the Shadow Silk Hood does, it makes you invisible for all humanine creatures, which are the Forgotten Rangers, the Forgotten Warriors, the Skeletons, the Zombies. But there's also one slight setback. If you encounter a Forgotten Mage, it will disable this effect for just a short while. So if you're in a room with a lot of creatures who can all not see you, but there is one Forgotten Mage in there which will disable your prayer or will disable your hood, you're kind of fucked, since they will all pile on you. But it is a really good hood and is much sought for. The second thing is a plate body. If you can't find a hood, it is quite rare, I'll tell you about it later. But if you can't find a hood, you should bind a plate body from, again, any material, depends on what your defense level is. Now once you got all the way to level 100, I already think you have some knowledge about Dungeoneering, otherwise you wouldn't be level 100. But as your third bind, you should bind a Hexhunter Bow over your Blood Necklace. Now these are both Slayer monster drops. The Hexhunter Bow can be dropped from the Soul Gazer and the Blood Necklace from the Adamu. We're talking about that later on as well. Now if you can't find a Hexhunter Bow, go for the Blood Necklace, and even if you can't find that, it is really difficult, you should bind either ones of the bind for 2. So you should have a two-hander, a Shadow Silk Hood and a Plate Body. That's the best combination if you can't find both a Hexhunter Bow and a Blood Necklace. Now the different items are dropped by different monsters. You can't just make them or find them anywhere. These are the only ways to get them. Now these are all Slayer creatures, so the higher the Slayer level, the more chance it gets. Now I'm gonna tell you something a little bit about a critical path. This is something I touched on more in different parts, but I guess I should tell it now since it is quite good to know if you want to go for these items. Now the critical paths are the paths that lead to the boss door. These are the only rooms that are required to the boss room, so these include no dead ends with no keys. These include no dead doors or anything like that. The critical paths are the paths that can always be done. So there's always one team member that can do the floor, or can do the door, or can do the puzzle, or can do anything like that. Now on critical paths, to encounter those Slayer monsters there, you need one Slayer level in the party. So for example, for the Adamu, you need 90 Slayer. So if you want to encounter an Adamu on the critical path, you need at least one guy with 90 Slayer in your party. Same thing with the Soul Gazer, which requires 99 Slayer. You need at least one guy with 99 Slayer in your party to encounter on the critical path. Now the Shadow Silk Hood, I told you before what it does, and it is dropped by the Night Spider. You don't need any Slayer level to get this one, but it has... I haven't tested this myself. I tried to test it, but it's really hard to do that since... yeah, the teams always change. We never have the same team, so yeah, it's kind of difficult with that. But as the Rune Wiki says, that the higher the Slayer level, or the higher the combined Slayer level in your party is, the higher chance of encountering a Night Spider. Now with an update that happened in April, these Slayer creatures are way more common to spawn on the floors, so it shouldn't be too much more difficult to encounter a Night Spider now. Now the chance of a Night Spider dropping a Shadow Silk Hood is about 1 in 16. Now with all these creatures, so the Night Spider, Adamu and Soul Gazers, with their Slayer drops, there is a chance of 1 in 16 that it will drop them. So even encountering a Night Spider is quite rare. Now it is even rarer to get it as a drop from the, or to get the Shadow Silk Hood as a drop. Now the second item is a Blood Necklace. What this thing does is every 15 seconds it will hit everyone who's around it, but not the players itself. All monsters that are around it for 40 damage. Well, this is not that amazing, you might think, but if there's many creatures around you, it will hit more. But not only that, it will heal everything that it hits. So not like a percentage, it will heal the full 40. Now if you have like 5 creatures around you, and they all get hit 40, you'll be healed 200. Now, especially in the higher level teams where you like don't take as much food and you just rush through everything, this is extremely useful, as you might already know. This one is dropped by the Enemu, which requires 90 Slayer to kill. So encountering this one is quite a high requirement, but if you have at least one guy in the party, there's a pretty reasonable chance encountering this one. The Enemu can only be encountered by abandoned floors and over, but the highest chance there is at a warp floor. So if you want to encounter this one, then if you're really going for that blood necklace, yeah, I recommend going to warp floors. Now the last item is a Hex Hunter bow, which is basically the best item in whole Dungeoneering. I'll explain later why. It is dropped by the Soul Gazer, which is commonly mistaken with the Seeker. The Seeker is a smaller version of the Soul Gazer, which doesn't have the spikes on top, and only drops a Seeker charm. It's also called the Troll Gazer, since it's not really a Soul Gazer. But if you first look at it, you might already get excited because you think it's a Soul Gazer. It requires level 99 Slayer to kill, so also if you want to encounter this one on the critical path, you need at least one guy with 99 Slayer in your party. Now the Hex Hunter bow is a really strong bow. It requires level 98 range to wield. And the strength of this Hex Hunter bow is determined by the magic offensive level of the target. Now especially with the higher level bosses, if you go in 5-man teams, these bosses are mostly mage based. And because they're such a high level, these magic levels are also really high. So hitting constant 400s, 500s is really possible with this bow. Now of course you also need an ammo bind, and most people choose to do the Secretarium arrows. These are dropped, I'm pretty sure, with the Skeletal Trio, so already on a occult floor. So if you want to get at a lower level, it's really not possible. But you can also use the Prometheum arrows, which you can make yourself. It is a little bit of a difference, but it's not too much. And of course your main bind is your sword, which I showed in the picture all the way to the bottom. Now aside from your main binds, which is the binds I touched on before, which were a level 1 bind, all the way to 120, which gets you 4 binds, there's also another bind, which is the ammo bind. Now if you've completed the Salt in the Wound quest, you can upgrade this ammo bind. First, we haven't done the quest, you get 125 ammo binds, while if you've done the quest you get 225. Now you can buy anywhere from arrows to runes. So if you want to get a quick dungeon done, you might want to bind law runes so you don't have to make them at the start, which saves you like, I don't know, 20 seconds to make them. But you also already have to make cosmic runes, so I guess that's not that much of a difference. And if you want to have a Hex Hunter bow, you can also bind certain arrows, which are also really useful. You can up to 225, which is, absolutely great. But there's also some other Slayer creatures and different rare drops. First one being the Celestial Surge Box. If you don't know what it does, you can store surges in there. It is also a item outside of Dungeoneering, but inside Dungeoneering you can store 225 surges in there if you've done the Salt in the Wound quest. And with that you can easily kill the Forgotten Warriors, which most of the time have a really high defense, especially to range and melee, but with magic you can hit quite hard. This one is dropped by the Forgotten Mage. It isn't that rare, but it is, I think, a nice addition to the game. It is good that if you get this, it is, you feel good that you've gotten a rare drop. Next one being the Guardian ones. This has no benefit at all. It's just quite rare drop from the Spiritual Warrior. It's not extremely rare, but it's cool to have, I guess. Next one, the Seeker Charm, which gets dropped by the Seeker. Now, as you see the picture right here on the screen, you can see why they call it the Troll Gazer. It looks a lot like the Soul Gazer, just no spikes there. The Seeker Charm also doesn't do anything useful. It has some okay stats, but it's just way more useful to bind a plate or anything like that. Last one, the Doomcore Staff, is dropped by the Necriel, also a monster which is outside of Dungeoneering. Doomcore Staff also doesn't have anything useful. I guess if you want a mage, it might be a little bit useful, but I guess I would bind a Celestial Surge Box over that anyway. So yeah, these are some of the different Slayer monster drops. They're not really that useful. The ones I showed before are way more useful, but yeah, if you want to go for them, if you just want to, if you see a certain of these monsters, since they are quite uncommon over the dungeon, but if you see any of those, you might want to kill them just to get one of these drops. Now I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please let me know in the comments below, and of course give this video a like. If you like more of my content, if you want to be notified about any other episodes I upload about my Dungeoneering guide, please subscribe and watch out for further videos. The next part should be out in the next couple of days. See ya!